So I am an enormous Marvel fan. I have seen every single movie and every single TV show up to this point multiple times. And I've made many videos on multiple Marvel movies and TV shows, as well as a ranking back before Phase 4 even started. Now, I tell you all of this so that when I criticize Marvel as a whole, you understand that it comes from a place of love and something that I like to believe I have a lot of knowledge on, and that is the MCU. I don't really have any knowledge on the comics. I'm going to be upfront about that. Never even picked up a comic book in my life. So all of the things I talk about stem purely as a fan from the MCU. Now, moving beyond that, I want to say that Marvel, as everybody knows, has a massive villain problem. Now, it's not every single villain. Sometimes you get your exceptions, such as Thanos and Loki and Killmonger. But usually you have stereotypical Marvel villains that are inconsequential and mirror the protagonist in almost every single facet. I'm looking at almost every single Iron Man movie. I'm looking at the Ant-Man movies. I'm looking at the Captain America movies, Doctor Strange, the Hulk, so many others. The villain is just a mirror of the hero. And while that is not necessarily different in Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the villain is very three-dimensional. You care about them, you empathize with them, you sympathize with them, and that is not something you see a lot within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. On top of that, Marvel has a problem when it comes to its action sequences. As of late in the Marvel Universe, with multiple heroes in every single movie, all of them having crazy superpowers, and the end battle always being a CGI clusterfuck of a random army of something or other coming at these heroes and them just taking them out 50 to 100 at a time. The action is always a little bit lackluster. In the third act, you always kind of just glaze over with your eyes, looking through what's actually happening, knowing how it's going to end. The good guy's going to win, all's going to prevail. There's going to be lightning and plasma things coming out of people's chests and hands and magic going on. It's a big cluster and it's hard to follow. Shang-Chi breaks away from the villain problem, it breaks away from the action problem, and it introduces so many aspects to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that either we have never seen or it's been a long time since we have seen. So I am very, very excited to talk about this movie with you today. Now, Shang-Chi had the honor of being the very first movie in the Phase 4 of Marvel. And I'm not going to count Black Widow as the first movie of Phase 4. It should have been made way back at the end of Civil War, not when it is right now. So it is the first movie that actually counts in Phase 4. And the second movie after Far From Home that takes place after the blip.
Over 5 years ago, half of all life in the universe, including our own Midtown High, was wiped from existence. But then, 8 months ago, a band of brave heroes brought us back. They called it the blip.
Now, the importance of this movie needs to be touched on in any video that is talking about this movie. After more than 20 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is the very first one with an Asian lead and a primarily Asian cast, and it represents the culture in what I think, although I'm not the best representation and understanding of the culture myself, I think it represents the culture extremely well and takes itself seriously. In the way that Black Panther made a lot of strides for the African American community within Marvel, Shang-Chi makes the strides for the Asian community within Marvel. It's a shame that it took 20 movies to do so, but it's wonderful that it is, in my opinion, one of the best Marvel movies that we have ever got. Now, the great part about this movie is that it could not even be a Marvel movie. Aside from just a few things throughout this movie, like Wong popping up a couple times.
That hurt, Emil. You want me to show you how it feels?
Trevor Slattery actually having a rather large role within this, although he didn't need to be in this movie at all. I enjoyed his character, but he wasn't somebody that was required. That role could have been given to almost any wise old jester figure.
Riding horses, I did, yes, when in fact, they were simply acting as if they were riding horses. I still can't get my head around it, to be honest.
Some minor talks of the blip and some Easter eggs scattered throughout. Without those few things that could have been easily taken out and converted into a normal movie, this could have just been a movie outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's difficult nowadays because I, along with many other people, have talked about the difficulties of coming off of the high of Endgame and making a movie that actually feels like it matters within the Marvel Universe. I feel like this one does it very well by almost separating itself from the Marvel Universe. You don't think, hey, why isn't the new Captain America or Ant-Man or any of these other heroes coming in to help this guy? Because nobody knows who the fuck this guy is.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
Now, Shang-Chi opens with a bit of an exposition monologue explaining what the Ten Rings are, who Shang-Chi's dad is, the Mandarin, and where that takes place within the Marvel Universe. It explains that this guy found these rings 1,000 years ago and used them for evil and to get money and power and influence over the next 1,000 years. He established the Ten Rings organization that worked from the shadows, toppling governments and influencing the world, which, by the way, I do have a little bit of a gripe with just how many secret organizations toppling governments and influencing things throughout the world over many, many generations are we going to have within Marvel. At a certain point, it becomes unbelievable that a dozen secret organizations, influencing the government aren't going to run into each other. But whatever, I can look past it. It's fine.
Totally fine. I don't know why it's coming out all loud and squeaky, because really, I'm fine.
But it shows the holder of the Ten Rings, Wenwu, the Mandarin, if you will, but I'm going to call him Wenwu. He is Shang-Chi's father, and it shows him falling in love with Shang-Chi's mother, him giving up the Ten Rings, her giving up her power from Ta Lo, this mystical realm that plays a huge part in this movie. I will tell you more about them later. And them running off and starting a family together. One thing that you'll realize going into this movie is that there's a lot of subtitles, a lot of people speaking Chinese and in their native languages with the subtitles being on the screen. I don't think an English word is spoken for the very first 8 to 10 minutes of this movie. And I really like that because it doesn't make any sense why Chinese people hanging out with other Chinese people in China would be speaking in English. It's like if you had 4 Russian people sitting around a table in Russia speaking broken English instead of Russian. It just doesn't make any sense. The fact that they actually had people speaking in their native languages and just had us read subtitles bodes really well and immediately sets this movie off on a really good mark, knowing that they have done this movie properly. We then do an incredibly hilarious hard cut to San Francisco in modern times to a modern Shang-Chi, now going by the name of Sean in San Francisco. We meet him and his good friend Katie, played by Awkwafina, and they are now valets.
Hello, sir. Welcome to the fair.
I'm driving.
No, you're not. Katie.
Now, Awkwafina is a rather, I would say, divisive actress, but I fucking love Awkwafina. I have seen her in Crazy Rich Asians and Ocean's 8 and everything she's in. If she's not the best aspect of that movie, she is one of the best aspects of that movie. She is hilarious and charismatic and different and just an all-around weird person, but I love the energy that she brings to this, being the comic relief, but not having it be a comic relief that some kind of takes out of the movie, which can be a problem when it comes to Marvel. I also love the fact that within this, Shang-Chi and Katie are best friends and nothing more. Too often in movies, when you get a male and a female lead, even if they are best friends from the start, by the end, they have a romantic relationship, and a lot of the story revolves around them having a romantic relationship building. And even if it's unnatural, well, it's the male and the female lead. They gotta start banging by the end. It's a movie. And I'm happy that this one just has them remain friends because their friendship is phenomenal. They play off each other super well throughout this.
That is exactly the daughter my mom wishes came out of her vagina.
I'm sorry about her.
It's always good to have a side character that doesn't know anything about the world. So if you want to give exposition to that character, explaining the world, it doesn't seem weird that people are explaining things to people that would already know about it. Already in the very beginning of this movie, though, only 10 minutes in, you get the air and the feel of a Marvel movie, but you get an amazing hip-hop and Western score kind of mingled together, and characters that you've never seen, or at least haven't seen in a very long time, within a Marvel movie. But at the 15-minute mark, you get the first action sequence, which is an all-out kung fu fight on a bus.
You okay?
And let me tell you, I'm not the first person to say this, obviously, but it is absolutely refreshing in a Marvel movie to see a fight scene with long, wide camera angles and be able to actually see what's going on rather than shaky cams and close-ups and be like, what the fuck's going on there? And that 8,000 colors of different superpowers being used at one time. And they had, from what I understand, Jackie Team's fight team and choreographer helping them out with this, and you can really see the influence with the environment being used and the humor within the fight. But I like the fact as well that Sean, I'm going to call him Sean from now on, in case my pronunciation of Shang Chi is terrible, which it probably is. But it's really cool to see Sean already one of the best fighters in the world. I didn't want to see another training montage of this guy 1 minute not knowing anything about fighting, and then 2 months later or whatever, all of a sudden being the best fighter in the world. So it's nice seeing that as well. But anyway, the bus fight scene really sets the tone for, oh my God, these are the best fight scenes we have ever seen in Marvel. And it keeps that up almost throughout the whole movie. The third act is kind of a when it comes to fighting, and oh goodness gracious, I'll get to that. But directly moving from the bus fight scene, we have him go to China to meet up with his sister to warn his long-lost sister that he abandoned with his father about the fact that their father's men are coming after them to steal these pendants that their mother gave them a long time ago. By the way, their mother's dead. I didn't mention that. Their mother's dead. That's a bummer.
That's rough, buddy.
But then you get this like underground fight club, and there's so many Easter eggs within this, such as an extremist guy fighting a Black Widow in a cage, and he has to face off against his sister in the ring, but he doesn't find out that it's his sister in the ring until he gets up there. But before that, you have a little cameo from Wong, which is really great. I love the fact that they got Wong for this. Probably the most popular Asian character within Marvel, so it's nice that they got him as kind of like the little reach out olive branch from the rest of Marvel to kind of remind you, hey, this is a Marvel movie. But then in there, probably only 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the bus fight scene, we have another phenomenal fight scene on the rafters outside the skyscraper, and it's more of just the awesome choreography, the wide angles, the long shots. But at the end of it, they are captured by their father, and we go into Act 2, and this, unfortunately, is when this movie takes a really, really big nosedive when it comes to the pace of it. And pace is very important when it comes to these movies. This movie's about 2 hours and 20 minutes long, I believe, but they really could have shaved off about 15-20 minutes of it, all within this second act. This second act isn't necessarily bad. It serves a lot of exposition. You get a lot of background for these characters, for Shang-Chi, for his sister, for his father, and it's necessary and vital for empathizing and understanding the dad, and therefore making him the better villain outside of what Marvel normally offers you.
Hey, Tony. Aldrich Killian. I'm a big fan of your work.
You understand his struggle and the fact that he gave up his life for this woman that he loved more than anything in the world, and after she was killed, he just fell into despair. And now he's hearing a voice from what we eventually learn is the Dweller in Darkness trying to get him and his 10 rings to set him free. But he hears the voice of his dead wife, and he just is on a war path to get her back. So you understand where he's coming from and you feel bad. So it's necessary with the flashbacks to get that feeling from the villain, but that does not mean that it doesn't slow down the pace for the next 45 minutes. In this second act, though, is when we get Trevor Slattery. Trevor Slattery, who you might remember as the extremely hated character from Iron Man 3, the first attempt at the Mandarin that was just a big ol' piece of fucking ass. Oopsie. But they bring him back in this kind of as the jester for Wenwu and his people, and they retcon perfectly the fact that Trevor Slattery sucked, and they acknowledge, hey, this was a big mess up on our part, and also maybe a bit racist as well, almost saying it outright.
But I'm sure he's a really good guy. I'm gonna shoot him in the head. Live on your television in 30 seconds. Number for this telephone is in your cell phone. Exciting, isn't it? Imagining how it got there.
Some time ago, I was offered the role of a terrorist. I know, facile, trite, I couldn't agree more. But times were lean, you know what I mean? Anyway, the producer told me he worked for the BBC. But, ironic twist, it turns out he in fact was a terrorist, and I wasn't playing a character at all, but what I now recognize to be a rather unflattering portrait of your father. We all got our just desserts.
And I'm a bit on the fence about Trevor Slattery because when I saw him, I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. This guy's going to be in this movie for maybe 5 minutes. It's going to be a little homage to Iron Man 3 and their first attempt at the Mandarin. But then for the rest of the movie, he's basically a main character. And it's a bit weird. And like I said, I'm on the fence if I feel like he overstayed his welcome or not because it feels kind of out of place. But at the same time, I did laugh every time he's on screen. So maybe it's good. I don't know. I'd be excited to learn what other people think. Did you think that he belonged in this movie as long as he did? Or do you think it was a bit weird to keep him as long as they did? But anyway, Trevor Slattery has this little mythical creature friend from Tao Lo. And his name is Morris, and if you're watching this with your wife or girlfriend, like I was, they'll immediately go, oh my god, I need a Morris. And I tend to agree. I myself also need a Morris, because he's a fucking adorable. And for whatever reason, Trevor Slattery is the only one that can communicate with him, but I don't question it because it's fun. You know, it's fun. And if I can suspend my disbelief about multiple realms and time heists and mythical gods, then whatever. Mythical creature that only Trevor Slattery can talk to. It's fine. Whatever. But they escape with Trevor and with Morris to go to Tao Lo. And after they get to Tao Lo, to this honestly beautiful, beautiful other dimension, the movie takes another nosedive. And now I know what you might be saying. Bailey, you're saying a lot of negative things about this movie that you are also saying is one of your all-time favorite Marvel movies. And you're right, but the first act of this movie is phenomenal. It's the best first act of any Marvel movie I've ever seen, and I will fucking fight you if you disagree with me. Okay, calm down. Jesus, that was maybe a little overboard. And I'm only being critical because this movie was so amazing in so many other accounts, and this movie is still amazing in all other accounts. I'm in a constant battle in my head if it overtakes Thor Ragnarok as my new #1 favorite Marvel movie.
Piss off, Ghost! He's freaking gone.
It definitely is my #1 favorite first Marvel movie for a character. But after they get to Tao Lo, you get the explanation of the Dweller in Darkness and the Great Protector, these two dragons that fought each other, this mystical realm that is thousands of years old and is protecting Earth from the Dweller in Darkness, from consuming the souls of all the people. And it first starts to register in your head, oh my god, we're gonna get another CGI slogfest of 1,000 expendable CGI characters fighting the good guys, aren't we? That's exactly what we're gonna get. And yeah, we do get that. And my eyes glaze over and I don't care about it and I don't really feel anything during that. But you also in this third act get a really, really good confrontation with Sean and his father, Wen-Wu, and you get him getting defeated by Sean because Sean is using the abilities that his mother used and also the abilities that his father taught him. He's the best of both worlds. And then Wen-Wu sacrifices himself for his son and gives up the rings after Sean rightfully won the rings. But you know that Wen-Wu is fine with his son having them, so that's necessary as well. And that's handled wonderfully by Marvel, so that's okay. And I can look past the messy third act because it's a Marvel movie and we gotta have it, you know? I enjoyed it. It's fun. They know what they're doing. I'm not gonna question them too much. Oh, great overlords of Marvel. They understand how to ignite the certain chemicals in my brain that make me have a good time and buy these things. So although the third act does falter with the CGI army and with Wen-Wu dying, I don't really think they should have killed Wen-Wu. There's a lot they could have done with that character. The first villain since Killmonger that I feel was actually given a good arc and you understand and you empathize with. I feel like maybe they should have kept him alive the same way that maybe they should have kept Killmonger alive. But I trust the formula at this point. They didn't let me down with a decade leading up to Endgame, so I trust them now, you know? But anyway, long rant over about this great movie that I just wanted to talk about, and I truly believe that it takes huge strides in fixing problems that Marvel has with its villains and with its stories and with its just predictability and sometimes the humor taking away from certain aspects of it. the huge CGI fights, and yes, it did have the huge CGI blowout fight at the end, but it also had amazingly choreographed fights between multiple characters using kung fu with wide shots, and it's just, oh my god, I love it. I got too worked up. But yeah, that's I mean, I guess that's about it. I just was excited to talk about this movie, honestly. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other videos.